108 years ago, one of the most famous and deadliest disasters took place. On April 15th, 1912, what was deemed as one of the most luxurious and safe ships ever built hit an iceberg and sank off the coast of Newfoundland, taking more than 1,500 lives. While the tragedy has inspired many movies, books, and articles, the disaster still holds some secrets and little known facts that may surprise you. So let's see the 10 strangest facts about the Titanic. Number 10. The secret U.S. military mission. Robert Ballard, who discovered the Titanic, said that the expedition was part of a secret U.S. military mission to recover two sunken nuclear submarines, the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion, on the bottom of the ocean. They did not want the world to know that, so I had to have a cover story, Ballard said. Now, the true story of what happened now serves as a museum exhibit at the National Geographic Museum in Washington. Ballard was a commander in the U.S. Navy and a scientist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. The Navy offered him funding and opportunity to search for the Titanic, but only if he explored the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion, two American nuclear subs that sank in the 1960s. We knew where the subs were. What they wanted me to do was go back and not have the Russians follow me because we were interested in the nuclear weapons that were on the Scorpion and also what the nuclear reactors were doing to the environment, Ballard said. When his team finished exploring the Scorpion and the Thresher, they had just 12 days left on their trip to search for the Titanic. The famed ship that sank on its maiden voyage was found on the ocean floor at a depth of more than 12,000 feet in the North Atlantic Ocean. When we found the Titanic, we were naturally very excited because it was a tough job. We got it, scoring the winning goal at the buzzer, Ballard said. Number 9. The first Titanic movie premiered just a month after the disaster. Okay, we're all familiar with 1997's Titanic as well as possibly the 1958 film A Night to Remember, but the first movie about the disaster was actually released on May 14, 1912, which is exactly a month after the accident. The silent film Saved from the Titanic starred actress Dorothy Gibson, who actually survived the Titanic in real life. Gibson had been returning from a 2-month trip with her mother in Europe. On the night of the sinking, they just happened to stay up late playing bridge, and while they were able to get into a lifeboat right away, they were on number 7, the very first lifeboat launched. Gibson is said to have grown hysterical as people around them met their fates in the icy water, repeating over and over, "I'll never ride in my little gray car again." Only a few days after she returned to New York, the 22-year-old Gibson started working on her story about the disaster. The idea for putting it on screen may have come from Jules Brulatour, an Eclair Film Company producer with whom she was having an affair. According to the Los Angeles Times, she even wore the same clothes in the film that she was wearing on that fateful night. Number 8. 20 horses needed to transport the main anchor. Deemed the largest vessel in service at the time, the RMS Titanic weighed over 46,000 tons. Contributing to this hefty weight were 5 anchors, the largest of which weighed a whopping 16 tons alone and required 20 Shire horses to transport it to the Dudley train station from Netherton, where the anchor had been constructed by Noah Hingley and Sons. Number 7. Fake news. On April 15, 1912, Vancouver newspapers didn't quite report the story correctly when the Titanic sank. The Vancouver World reported Titanic sinking, no lives lost on the day it fell beneath the Atlantic Ocean. But that wasn't the only newspaper spreading the fake news. The Evening Sun proclaimed, "All saved from Titanic after collision." The Vancouver Daily Province reported the Titanic sinking, but probably no lives lost. Only the New York Times hit close to the truth with a lengthy headline which read, "Titanic sinks 4 hours after hitting iceberg. 866 rescued by Carpathia. Probably 1,250 perish. Is May safe? Mrs. Astor maybe? Noted names missing." Christopher Sullivan, an editor at the Associated Press in New York who researched the origins of this catastrophic error, said, "At the very beginning, when the story is just developing, there is so much confusion and everyone is doing everything they possibly can to grab any piece of information." Number 6. They kept playing. The 8 members of the Titanic's band weren't even crew members. Instead, they had been booked for the cruise through a Liverpool talent agency. All 8, bandmaster Wallace Hartley, Roger Burko, John Frederick Preston Clark, Percy Cornelius Taylor, George Alexander Kearns, William Theodore Brayley, John Law Hume, and John Wesley Woodward perished, but they will be forever remembered for their acts of courage that fateful night. They are perhaps one of the most famous bands in the world, a string octet that serenaded the first-class passengers at dinner. However, the night that the Titanic sank, these 8 musicians are credited with keeping the mood light and the passengers calm. As the Titanic dropped lower and lower into the frigid water, they played light ragtime and gave the impression of the passengers on the deck that all was under control and that there was no need to panic. So they continued to play as the Titanic went down. The iconic scene from the movie also happened in real life, and that was all to help calm down the guests. Number 5. Warnings. The Titanic received multiple warnings about ice fields in the North Atlantic over the wireless, but as it's known, the last and most specific warning was not passed along by senior radio operator Jack Phillips to Captain Smith, apparently because it didn't carry the prefix MSG, which means Master's Service Graham. Now that would have required a personal acknowledgement from the captain. Phillips interpreted it as non-urgent and returned to sending passenger messages to the receiver on shore at Cape Race, Newfoundland before it went out of range, writes Richard Corfield in a Physics World retrospective on the disaster. Number 4. Miss Unsinkable. Violet Jessup is the name of a nurse who survived the Titanic, and not only did she survive all 3 disasters aboard the sister ships, the Titanic, the Britannic, and the Olympic. After surviving all 3 disasters, Violet Jessup would become known as Miss Unsinkable. Well, from the moment she was born, it was clear that she was a survivor. Of her parents' 9 children, only 6 of them survived infancy, Violet being the first. When she was a child, she contracted tuberculosis, and though doctors predicted her illness would be fatal, she survived it. So it should come as no shock that she also survived the most famous ocean disaster of all time. Number 3. Famous people died during the disaster. Counted among the dead were some notable names. John Jacob Astor IV was one of the richest people in the world, but even his immense riches could not get him a spot on a lifeboat. Astor was traveling with his wife Madeline in Europe when she became pregnant. To ensure the child would be born in the US, the couple booked a trip home on the Titanic. W.T. Stead, a founding figure of investigative journalism, was allegedly last seen sitting in a leather chair as the ship sank reading a book. Isidore Straus, owner of Macy's department store, and his wife Ida died together. According to sources, Straus was offered a spot on a lifeboat while the ship was sinking. He declined, saying he would not board a raft until every woman and child had gotten off the ship. Ida then refused to leave her husband. When her husband urged her to evacuate the ship, she reportedly responded, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." Number 2. Optical illusion. There is a theory that suggests that the Titanic may have struck an iceberg and sank helplessly because of a strange atmosphere caused optical illusion. As British historian Tim Moulton says, superrefraction, an extraordinary bending of light that causes mirages, prevented the Titanic's crew from seeing the fateful iceberg. The abnormal bending of light waves would have created a false horizon, and the iceberg lay beneath it out of view of the ship's lookouts. They sounded the alarm when the iceberg was a mile away, but it was too late. The same bizarre atmospheric conditions could have prevented nearby ships, the Californian, from seeing or hailing the doomed Titanic, Moulton says. Number 1. The Titanic is being eaten. However, scientists believe that in a few decades, there may be nothing left of the ship at all, thanks to a species of bacteria that is slowly eating away its iron hull. They isolated just one species of bacteria, and it turned out to be brand new to science, and it was named Halomonas titanica. The bacteria can survive in conditions that are completely inhospitable to most life forms on Earth, pitch black water, and at crushing pressures. Able to adhere to steel surfaces, these species have led to the formation of knob-like mounds or corrosion. Covered with such rust mounds, the wreck of the Titanic is at risk of disintegrating into dust, as the porous rusticles eventually dissolve into a fine powder. Which of these facts do you think is the strangest? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on your post notifications so you never miss a video from us. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. See you in the next video, and thank you for watching.